So we're going to go ahead and get started here with the podcast. Trying to do some new things here. Had a little difficulty as we went on to the podcast yesterday, both with school issues and then of course internet issues and stuff. So we're going to go ahead and start today. As it said, our game of the week is going to be um, Bradley-Bourbonnais versus Lincoln Way West. So we expect that game from both schools' perspective. It's like these are going to be the Titans, Jordan, that we think are probably going to come out and vie for the conference championship. I'm not trying to be presumptuous. It's just that's what it appears to be. We have some of our teams that are up in the conference. We have some of our teams that are down. We think we're on an upswing. We think Lincoln Way West is. I kind of want to get your perspective too of what you're seeing. You'll have a better perspective probably from the Lincoln Way West group than I do. I've got a pretty good perspective from the Bradley group. But maybe you can talk a little bit, one, about the game and then two, about Lincoln Way.
Yeah, so, you know, Bradley-Bourbonnais, they had a tough matchup last week against Lockport, and, they battled throughout, and they were going up against a bigger school, that has a lot more kids, a lot more, um, how do I say, young individuals to pick from for that team. But there were still some, glimpses of brightness for the future for Bradley-Bourbonnais that were seen in that game, with Cage Williams, with Neil May, Grayson Dexter, things of that sort. So taking that momentum that was built in that game into this one is going to be big for Bradley-Bourbonnais. And then switching over to Lincoln Way West, they have Eric Nowak and Justin Harris, who are both big playmakers for them on offense and defense. And they fly to the ball. They're aggressive. They cover sideline to sideline. On offense, Eric plays wide receiver, so he's always a deep threat to go on the long ball, fly routes. And then Justin Harris plays running back, who he has the speed to turn the corner. And once he turns that corner, if you don't catch him, he can break a big run, or he can go straight up the middle in between the guard and tackle and just blow by that second level defender. So those are going to be kind of the two main people to look out for on Lincoln Way West heading into this game.
Yeah, I think for us, Lincoln Way West, and probably for everybody in the conference, you're always going to run into a quality team there. I don't think you can never go into a Lincoln Way West game thinking we've got this under control. And I reached out to Coach Cole and kind of wanted to ask him what his thoughts were on the game and what he expects out of Lincoln Way West. And here's what Cole had to say about it. He said Lincoln Way West is one of the best 0-3 teams in the state of Illinois. The teams that beat them have not lost a game. We've always had great battles with these guys. They're very well coached and have really tough kids. We're excited to watch our boys compete again. So, that tells you from the head coach's perspective is that you can't go into any of these games, and this is probably true with any conference. You can't go into any of these games assuming automatically that this team is going to be a team that, because their record is not in their favor, that you're going to somehow walk over them or walk all over them. That's just not going to happen. And I think anytime you get into for us, the Lincoln Ways, whether it be Lincoln Way West, Lincoln Way Central, and certainly, Lincoln Way East is always a powerhouse. We'll see them, I think, the last game of the season. So you just can't, overlook these guys. Now, kind of turning to Bradley a little bit, I kind of put together a list, and I hope I'm not keeping anybody off of this list, but kind of where I try to remember as the best I can from watching kids of what we expect. And so, players to watch from my perspective are, our seniors, Cage Williams at quarterback, Nate Murphy, Mark Robinson, Vito Criswell at safety, DJ or Dietrich D at running back. And then, impact players, we think that we have some depth coming in with Ethan McGrath and Noah Schiller. But we have a lot of juniors with Neil May at wide receiver, Barkley. Both of those wide receivers are great. Micah Swilly, linebacker, Alex Phillips at corner. And some of these guys I don't get to see as much. I'm watching other plays, but Vernon Malone at corner. And then we've actually got some sophomores who have helped fill in our line with Victor Rogers and Jacob Beck. So when we look at this depth, especially when you get into McGrath and Schiller, their guys are going to come in if they're not starting right away. They're going to come in and probably really help our offense and defense wherever they plug in at to get some much needed rest, right? Because again, Lincoln Way West is going to come at you with everything. So you need to have some depth there. I think we've got some depth. We've got, great run game. We've got a great passing game. Like you said last week, we ran into kind of a tough powerhouse 8A team in Lockport. Unfortunately, I don't think the game, both on the field or off the field, was reflective of either team. I do have, even though there was some wrangling going back and forth between fans and players, my son told me, hey, the kids that we were dealing with on the team that are, a lot of these kids are committed. Some of these kids, there's a couple twins on there going D1. That they were very respectful. They had good conversations, and that's really what we want to see on the field is these kids compete but have respect. We've got kids that are committed to D1, D2, D3, and in a lot of different places, and those kids have long futures ahead of them. And we want to make sure that both they're healthy and they do the things that they need to do, but be respectful for that. And one of the kids prior to that, and if I get your last name wrong, I apologize, but Hyatt. Uh, it's Timosciek, Timosiak. Great kid. Reached out to my son and just said, "Hey, man, he said, hey, you're looking good. Watch your film because I think you're D1 talent. Good luck this week." My son responded back and talked about some of the teams, some of the D1 teams that look at him, and he said, "Hey, I wish you luck and stuff, and then be safe out there." And they had a little conversation going back and forth, and I think that's really what it's about. We have, when you're competing at a high school level, even though it's high school, uh, you're competing against kids that have different opportunities to go elsewhere. And so, going into every game, you want to respect your opponents. You want to make sure that they are safe. You want to win, but you don't want anything to happen to them. And that's what we're hoping this week is going in. Obviously Bradley wants to come out with a win. Lincoln Way West wants to come out with a win. But I think everybody, from coaches to players to fans, want to see a great game, want to see great sportsmanship. And we've always had that with Lincoln Way West. They've always been great. And so we're looking forward to a lot. I think, it's kind of just going to be how we start, right? How does Bradley start? How does Lincoln Way start? And how do we plug in? You're looking at from just kind of how that thing progresses, right? What adjustments are made in the game. And so, Coach Cole's going to have his hands full with his coaching staff of making those adjustments. I think, even though they're 0-3, as Coach Cole said, they're a powerful team, and it certainly is reflective of the quality of that team. And I'm not leaving anything out and giving too much kudos to Lincoln Way West, but our Bradley kids, last week when you can move the fog of war aside and you look at what I saw in that game, even though it was a tough game for us, I saw a quarterback that's throwing great passes, even in between some of the hiccups. With Cage Williams, Neil Mays out there making some great catches. Caleb Barkley, too. Saw our defensive line, our offensive line going out there, even when it looked like we had nothing going. And really, their second half, I think, Lockport kind of got tired. We kind of seen that in the film, and we kind of picked up. And so for us, I think what's going to be important for Bradley is kind of getting both of those first half, second half things at a certain level. You don't want this here, and then you run into a deficit going in a half. You don't want this here where you're up. We had that last year with Lincoln Way West. We were up pretty good, and then they really adjusted their game, came back to second half, and then they won. I think it was 25-24. I don't know. It was a one-point game, whatever that score was, and that was heartbreaking. But they were a great team. So I think this week, as a game of the week, and you picked it, when I asked you what's your game of the week, and you said this, of course, I'm excited. I've got a son that plays at Bradley, so I'm always excited. But I find I'm more and more excited to learn about all these teams. And The first week when I started getting scores in and stuff, I'm looking at, Bishop Mack and what they're doing. You look at Kankakee, I think, depending on what poll you're looking at, anywhere from second in their class to seventh in their class. I think second is a more official poll, but I think Coach Big Pete's got them down a little bit farther. But they're a quality program. Bishop Mack has ran into some hiccups, but had a great game last week. And those are our local teams, but I've got a buddy of mine up north, and we start talking about St. Rita, Carmel, Loyola, right? Those classic powerhouses that, if you follow high school football, So for you to pick this as the game of the week, we're certainly happy with that. I hope Lincoln Way West is happy with that. We're going to try to get stuff out to them too. But you have any other thoughts on the game of the week?
So I think it's going to be a very hard fought battle. Like there's going to be momentum swings, throughout the whole game, and I think whoever wins this game is going to win within 3 points at the end of the day.
It's funny you say that. I stopped by our quarterback, Paige Williams' house. I know the parents. They've got some family in town, and I wanted to meet them. And that's kind of what the consensus is. It's going to be a close game. It's going to be 2 or 3 points, one way or the other. So your take on it from your perspective seems to be kind of other people's take on it. So yeah, I'm really excited about the game of the week, and I'll be there, of course. We'll have, I'm lucky. Everything that I've been through, and what I've been through, Jordan, with my transplant to save my life last year on October 8th. Then from that, my donor unfortunately had CMV, or the cytomegalovirus. We've tried to start this thing, and the majority of this stuff, I think all of it falls on me and whether my health allows me to do these things. This, while people go, well, what's so hard about that? For a guy who is having some medical problems, this is really, really tough for me. So I'm really, I'm excited to get to do this. This has forced me out of work, onto disability, and I try to get my strength up for those days. So today's going to be filled. It's the pleasure and blessed to be here with you today, and it's also then the pleasure of, I'm going to take me and my wife's going to take my grandson up north to a little pumpkin patch, try to save all my energy, and then we're heading to that football game, which just emotionally, I'm sure, drains everybody. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Are you going anywhere this week? Are you tied up? Or are there any games you're going to try to catch, maybe online if you can't get out?
Yeah, so I won't be able to get to any games this week, but I am going to try and watch another game or two online over the weekend.
Yeah, and those are probably tough, right? Because you get online and depending on where you're at and what systems they have set up, right? Some of them have great systems and some of them have not so great systems. And, that's all reflective, of just what kind of money they can get put into their program and what kind of resources they have. So, from a Bradley-Bourbonnais booster supporter, I would encourage parents who watch this to take the time, no matter what program you're in, and if you've got some extra dollars, try to throw it to your program's weight. I know for us, and I'm sure for other ones, it's not a cheap option to run a program, and that's inclusive of what kind of video do you get. I mean, I know a lot of parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles and former alumni of all the schools say, "Hey, is this on TV?" And I think, I always get the letters wrong. The network that you use is, and I'm not going to say it because I'll screw it up, is what?
It's the NFHS network.
There you go. I'm going to let you say it because unless I have it written down, I'll mess it up. But you can go on there. You pay a fee to do that. Some schools actually do it out on their YouTube stuff. I know we do. But you remember, when you're watching a game, it's all reflective of the resources you have or what people have donated or used, and say, hey, use this camera for this. So try to remember that as you're going through this and you say, hey, I can't make it out either. I'm not healthy enough. I just can't make it tonight or whatever. And a lot of times those games are held over for a period of time. And you get the opportunity to watch the game even if you can't see it live. So I kind of wanted to switch gears just for a second and talk a little bit about scouting and recruiting if we can. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So what I wanted to do is just take a moment to talk to our athletes that are out there and let you know that, look, being recruited isn't a passive process, right? So I talked to some players, and one of the things they said that was somewhat troubling to me was, hey, here's the deal. I haven't got anybody following me lately. Well, you can't sit back and wait for them to come to you. What you have to do is, in particular, as we did recently with our, kind of our free seminar for folks that was held over here in Bourbonnais, you have to be active out there. So what I want athletes to remember is if you have a school you like, find out who that coach is, go to their school site. So let's say you're interested in Iowa State. You go to Iowa State, go look on the menu, look down, and look for the football recruiting questionnaire.
Yeah.
That's the first thing you got to do. Then find that coach on Twitter, follow him, and say, I'm interested in your program. Now, unless you're a super stud and you've already got your stuff done, you may not end up going to Iowa State. You may end up going somewhere else. And if a coach starts following you, whether it's a JUCO or whether it's NAIA, D3, D2, D1, don't be lost in the fact that it may be not at the level you're at. You want to be at that NAIA. And so let's say you really want to go D1, D2, but an NAIA school starts following you. You need to take the time, if that coach follows you, is reach out to him. You've been notified on Twitter. Let him know, hey, thanks, coach, for watching me. I'm interested in knowing more about your school and more about your program. And, then get into giving them some information. Give them, hey, I'm a senior at Bradley-Bourbonnais, or I'm a junior or sophomore, and then include your huddle tape. Make sure you got a good huddle tape out there and get that out, and use that link on the share that they have. The share button as you're watching it. It's kind of a smaller, what they call a short URL. Put that at the bottom of your DM back to them, and then put in there, list out, hey, this is my name, this is my year, this is my position, right? My height, my weight, my email. If you have an NCAA identification number, put that in there. But kind of leave that so as he looks through it, you can do that. And here's why I say this. It can happen to anybody. It happened to us with my daughter playing softball. Different sport, I get it. But she was being recruited by Louisville. Can you imagine that? Your kid's going to go to Louisville and play D1 sports. We were ecstatic over it. We went down for a camp. They were interested in her and the pitcher. And unfortunately, their catcher went down. And so what they said was, we don't need you anymore because we're now going to use our, I don't know if it was a freshman. So what they don't want to do is, at least from a softball perspective, is that person goes down, then that, freshman, sophomore, whatever jumps in, and then my daughter jumps in, and then someone else jumps in. They don't want 3 or 4 right in a row because they want to take that resources and put it over to another position. So there's so many things that go on behind the scenes when you're being recruited. You got to understand that when we looked at Louisville and they told us we're no longer interested in you, that's a hard thing to take. But then ultimately, out of the same conference, which was the Big East Conference, Providence started following us all over the country as we went to showcases, and we finally had to ask, who are you interested in? They indicated my daughter, and we eventually asked, how did you know about her? We had never even followed anything out east. And they said the coach at Louisville called me and said, hey, take a look at this kid. I think you could really use her. And so she ended up going to Providence. Wasn't on our radar screen. These schools for you athletes aren't going to be on your radar screen. They're going to be oftentimes somewhere else. And for her, it turned out to be great. She ended up getting her bachelor's degree. She ended up getting her master's degree, and now she's an accountant. So she's working on her CPA. So I think it's important that kids understand, and our student athletes understand, be active, be out there looking, and please don't take any school for granted. Don't say, Coach, I'm not interested because I think your program sucks. I'm not interested because I think you're not where I want to be. I want to be D1. You never know what's going to happen in life. And as I say to the folks, the kids, the student athletes I work with, tell them, look, right now you're not dancing with anybody. You need to dance with somebody, right? And
Yeah.
so start dancing with somebody, because maybe that NAIA school, that JUCO school, is the only thing that's coming your way. I know you have dreams. A lot of kids have said, and you heard this at our conference, Jordan. I want to go to LSU. I want to play at LSU. I don't tell kids you can't do it. I just tell them, hey, that's a great goal. I think you have goals, and some of those goals are pretty lofty, playing for an Alabama or whatever. But if you say only Alabama, I have a funny feeling you might be a little disappointed, right?
Yep.
And because those kids are monsters down there, and we're just not quite there. But you might be. But in the meantime, they got great programs here in the Midwest. They got great programs out west. They've got great programs and quality ball. And I think you can attest to it. You played football at D3, JUCO. D2, D1, FCS, FBS, right? So be active in what you're doing. Don't sit back and wait for them, and get stuff out there. Another thing I would say is, as you're putting stuff out, and I've seen athletes do this, when you put your Twitter out, you better tag somebody. Otherwise, it just goes to yourself and it doesn't mean anything. So tag, as you can see there, uh, Jay Amaskin, right? That's yours. At
Yep.
the County Pulse, that's mine. At Prep Red Zone IL, and for everybody to know that Prep Red Zone has, I think, 38 or 39 states where they cover right now. You're working on all 50. And when you do that, you do Prep Red Zone and the abbreviation IL for Illinois, IN for Indiana,
Yep.
WI for Wisconsin, IA for Iowa, MN for Minnesota. Get your stuff set, but be active out there. And Jordan, you probably got some thoughts on this as well. Just trying to make sure kids understand that you're kind of your own social media, right? You're your own little. People used to hire people to do this. You can do that if you want. We're not telling you can't, but we don't think you need to. We don't think we need to. You need to ask mom and dad, or mom and dad need to fork over 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. You have to be active, and the more you're active, the better. If your Twitter goes dead for 2 months and you're not doing anything, they think you've moved on. You got a girlfriend, you hit the lotto, whatever. Um, and you may be thinking, I haven't heard anything from anybody, because you're not active. Be on. Put your videos out. Put your workout videos out. Put something up. Check in on a coach. If they send you a graphic in a DM, put that up and thank them, and let other people know that that's kind of a school that's interested in you. I think those things are important. So, Jordan, I'm sure you've got some thoughts on it, because this is right up your lane. But why don't you talk a little bit for our folks out there and our student athletes and parents, so they have an idea of what's going on?
Yeah, so the biggest thing is to fill out as many recruitment questionnaires as you possibly can for all levels. D1's for D1 FBS, D1 FCS, D2 NAIA, D3 JUCO, and get as many of those out there as you possibly can to be in all those different databases. Because all it takes is just for one coach on one team to want to give you a chance, and then from there, like as you've seen, is that once one school finds interest in you, other schools in that same conference are going to be like, okay, who is this kid? Let me go look at him as well, and then that's how you get all these different schools that will be interested in you, and have your recruitment pick up, getting offers depending on what the level's at. You end up getting a lot of offers, and then say you get a lot of D3 offers, and the D2 school will see you have all these D3 offers. It's like, well, if he has all these D3 offers, let's see if he's good enough to play D2, good enough to play NAIA, and that's how it just snowballs from there. One thing to keep in mind, though, for right now is that because of COVID and because of the way that everything has been structured, there are a lot of kids that have the talent to go play D2, D1 that aren't necessarily getting those opportunities at the moment because there's a cap on how much scholarships they can offer. So you'll have kids that have the talent to play up at that level that aren't getting those offers and instead or end up dropping NAI or D3 or JUCO, which is completely fine. It's still having a high level of competition. Then the thing is, well, if I'm at this point, let me go show out at this lower level so everyone knows how good I am. And depending on how you do, if you end up getting like all conference or all American, things like that, you have the choice of,
Absolutely.
do you want to stay there and keep racking up these accolades and then, seeing if you can get into the NFL, because that's most people's dream goal for football, or would you want to enter the transfer portal and go up a class? And that's kind of a decision you have to keep in mind. And with that, with the transfer portal, is that there are a lot of people in the transfer portal, and it might not always be very beneficial to do so, depending on kind of where you're set on going. Like, for example, are you set on wanting to play all 4 years and rack up accolades and get a degree, or would you rather be known to just be on, say, like a Alabama or LSU and only play maybe 5 or 6 snaps out of your whole entire 4 or 5 year career?
Yeah, and I think that's the other thing. I mean, I tell kids you can go D1. That's fine. You may get a preferred walk on. You may get a scholarship. Um, my only concern is, and I've had this conversation both with my son and then with other players I'm working with, is you may be able to go play at an Illinois, an Alabama. I don't know. But remember, and it was a shocker for us. I think it was somewhat of a shock for my daughter. She was an all-state catcher. So you go there, guess what? Everybody's all-state, right? Everybody's the big woman on campus, the big man on campus. You could go D1, but the question is how much you're going to play, right? And I think as athletes, you have to remember that. And as parents, you have to remember that. I want to go to a game and see my kid play, right? And the sooner he can play in college, the better. If that's at NAIA and they have his program and what his degree is going to be, hey, that's great, right? I don't want him to end up going to Alabama, LSU, Clemson, and he gets the only time I see him is maybe when he runs onto the field to get the kickoff tee and then run back off for the 4 years, right? It's great. Don't get me wrong. It's wonderful. And we want our kids to strive for that. But one, you got to find the right place, and you'll know that when you go visit. We've been to several campuses, and my son said the words at one of the visits he had. I kept asking him, "Are you sure that's the right place? Are you sure? What about this school over here? It's pretty nice. What do you think?" And he said, "I don't know, Dad. It just feels right. You'll get there. And that feel right, man, it could be any school out there.
Yeah.
And you want to know that you're going to them, not because of their name, but because they got, there's a program you can participate in. You can impact that program. You've got great leaders in that program and coaches who will be your mentors probably for the rest of your life, right? You get to get on the field and enjoy your college life. It's hard enough going to school and studying when you add in really a full-time job of football. I mean, a good friend of my son's, he's like a second son to me. He's going to Carthage. I got to look at his sheet. 5:30 in the morning starts, ends at 10 o'clock at night. You get to bed. So don't think you're going to go to school. I don't care if it's D3 as a Carthage or if it's a D1 at LSU or Alabama or anything else or Notre Dame, right? It's work. It's a lot of work, and you have to be prepared for that. But I'm not trying to talk anybody down from their levels. I just want you to have a range, right? So let's hope for the best, expect the least, and we're going to fall somewhere in there, and we won't be disappointed, nor will we be surprised. So I just wanted to touch on that because I think it's kind of something that's hit me a little bit. I'm surprised, even after conversations with student athletes, that they are out saying, I haven't really had anyone follow me. Well, if you're waiting on Brian Kelly from Notre Dame to follow you, that's not going to happen. It's just not, right? Unless you're the top quarterback or the top wide receiver or a stud in your position and you're ranked as one of the top players in the country. So if you want Brian Kelly to look at you, go chase Brian Kelly. And if he doesn't have his DMs open, send him an email. I'm not opposed to that. But please don't ever look down at any other level. There are great coaches and programs at all levels. And as our friend says, and Jordan, you agree with this, our friend at Deep Dish Football, big Coach Pete says, never, ever pay for recruiting. And I'm going to leave it at that, brother. I think that's about right. But, yeah, I won't get to see you this weekend. You're not coming down to cover the game, but you'll be watching at some point and give us kind of your views. And as long as everything's going well with me, we'll hopefully be back next week, right?
Yep.
I enjoy it. I don't know how many views we get. I'm hoping maybe a couple billion, but if not, I'll take a couple. That's fine with me. But I know our Bradley fans and parents are looking forward to this, Jordan. And I can't say enough about how I appreciate you from Prep Red Zone taking the time to be here, whether it be our game as game of the week or whatever game it is. I certainly appreciate your time, brother. And as always, over this time, you become a friend of mine. We don't get to talk as much, either through health issues or busyness. Even for a disabled guy like myself, I try to stay as busy as I can so I don't think about all the battles I go through every day. Um, but I appreciate you, and I think other people do as well. So I'll get you down here before the year's over, one way or the other, so you can check us out and then see our parents. And again, brother, it's good seeing you. I'm glad we got a chance to get together today.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It's been too long, man. So it's something I love to do. I know it's something you love to do. Someone asked me the other day as I went through stuff, what do you feel your purpose is? I'm not really for sure, but I can tell you as I laid in an operating room and had two other hospitals, major hospitals in this country, tell me I wouldn't survive it, that I was kept here for a reason. And one is I think, to try to reach out and help our athletes down here who may be getting overlooked. And, we can't guarantee anything, right, Jordan? We can only give you, student athletes and your parents, the knowledge that you need to really start doing the things you want. And at the end of the day, be selfish about it because it is a business. If you go out and recruit and you're active, you can save yourself a lot of money. And I know a lot of parents want their kids to go, and a lot of kids want to go also, but they also would love to be able to play football. So
Yeah.
look around, man. I've been educated on a ton of programs, D3, D2, JUCO, man, and met a lot of great people. So take your time to do that. Reach out to Jordan at JM Askin, or reach out to me at the County Pulse with any questions, and we'll be able to answer. Maybe not immediately that day, but we'll get back to you. Um, and send Jordan stuff. Jordan's always interested in stuff. If you're going to camps coming up after the season or whatever, let him know. You guys probably starting in the new year will probably start having camps again, I imagine. And you'll
Yeah.
have them in probably all your states, but in particular, you'll have them in Illinois, probably Indiana, like the one in Crown Point earlier this year. And so get over there. You'll see him. You see he's a good-looking young man. Walk up to him as a young guy, whether you're a freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior, and say, hi, Mr. Maskin. My name is such and such, and I'm here to try to show you my talent, right? So, listen, I'm not going to keep you too much longer, brother. I appreciate you. I appreciate the fact that I'm here still today and doing what I think I love to do. And you sitting right by my side from Prep Red Zone is a big thrill for me, brother.
Well, I'm always happy to be here. Always happy to help out.
All right, brother. Hey, thanks, and I'll talk to you. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, sounds good.